Okay, hello and welcome. Today we'll be presenting to you on the data governance solution, which encompasses secure at source, enterprise data catalog, and Axon and data quality. Let's first start off with the platform. A quick overview of the platform. We have the underlying layers, which is connectivity, the ability to connect all your different sources, compute, the ability to execute on-premise, in the cloud, or on Hadoop distribution, the ability to monitor and manage, and it's all underpinned by our CLAIRE AI Enterprise Unified Metadata Intelligence layer. And on top of that, we have our 6 products, and on top of that, so the 6 products are best of breed as defined by the analyst, and on top of that we have our solutions as well. And the 3 solutions we have highlighted today we'll be covering as part of the presentation demonstration. Moving right along. So from a governance point of view, data stewards play a very important role. They're what we call the traffic wardens of any governance initiative. They need the ability to understand glossary terms, understand data policies and curate data policies, understand business lineage and manage that, and participate in the workflow process. From a business point of view, business users need the ability to be able to understand quality, data quality scores, and we do that via scorecarding. They need the ability to understand catalogue items, view lineage, make changes where they're required, and they also need a catalogue to be able to, a business glossary to be able to talk the business lingo within the enterprise. And also not only just talk the business lingo, but understand what those artefacts actually mean. So governance doesn't stop there. It also has a security facet. And so when we look at the solution as a whole, at the top part of the solution, we need to define what a policy is and understand if it's a security policy, what does it entail? Is it an active policy? Is it in production? Is it effective at the moment? All of those type of things. Once we've defined the policy, we need to be able to measure and monitor it. And we do that through secure at source, so we understand the status. Once we do that, all those metrics can be manifested back into Axon that allow us to see that bird's eye view of our security policies and how they're tracking from a governance lens. So when we look at the data privacy and protection side of governance, there are 6 steps which we like to define. And so the first step would be define and manage governance policies, and we do that through the Axon interface, which is the business tool for the business. 2 is we need to discover and classify and understand personal and sensitive data, and we do that through an automated curation process using the catalogue. 3, we need to map identities. 4, we need to analyse the risks and establish protection plans. 5, we need to protect the data and manage subject rights and consent. And 6, we need to measure and communicate. So let's look at these 6 in a bit more detail. So step 1, if you have a look at the picture, we need to be able to connect the people, processes, and the systems, manage privacy policies, and monitor and report on compliance. 2, we need to rapidly locate and understand sensitive data. Where are those vulnerabilities? Where are the risks? What do we need to manage? 3 is we need to link the identities to the sensitive data, have some intelligence on locations and systems, and have some intelligence on the use and access of the data. So we overlay user access over the sensitive data. Number 4, we need to analyse the risk and establish protection plans. And number 5, we need to protect the data and respond to the right and consent request. And 6 is the final step, which is the measure and monitor of audit readiness, track and report on privacy readiness. What I want to focus in on now is how do we protect the data from authorised and unauthorised users? So from an authorised point of view, we have a solution for what we call dynamic data masking, where a user may make a request to a database, as shown in the diagram. So they select from table 1. And so what we do is authenticate the user, say, okay, is that an authorised user? Yes, it is. They have requested access to a data set and the data is returned. So dynamic data masking intercepts the request and understands who that user is and then returns the data accordingly. An unauthorised user will issue the same request, may issue the same request. Dynamic data masking will intercept that query and say, okay, well, that user doesn't have authorised access on that particular database or that particular entity, and so we're going to mask the data and return the data in a masked fashion. Data masking provides 4 main functions. 1 is field masking, 2 is value preservation, 3 is result pruning, and 4 is blocking. One of the features I do like about dynamic data masking as well is it keeps a full log of every request that has gone into the data store. So if you wanted to then perform some analytics on top of that logging or just check the audit trail, you have the ability to do that. So how does it actually work? So on the top part of the slide, you've got your applications, you've got your BI reports, and you may have some DBAs or development tools like SQL Plus or any other types of tools out there. When those requests come in from those 3 pillars, the requests will come in, and step 1 in the authentication process is authenticating the user. Who is that user? Are they an authorised user or are they an unauthorised user? If they're an authorised user, we'll identify the sensitive data that they're requesting, and we'll check and make sure that the authorised user can access that data and doesn't need to have any restrictions or any masking rules applied. And that's where step 3 comes into play. That's all around applying those security actions. Axon is a business self-service tool where it facilitates collaboration with the enterprise, and it helps you understand all the data assets that are out there, all the business data assets, and how those assets intersect with the data. We're logging in as John Administrator, and the first thing I want to do, or any business user may want to do, is search for something. And so we've got this smart search up on the top row here, and we want to search for example, the customer master. Let's search for customer master. Now, when I type that text in, it provides me a predictive text drop-down list. And so you'll see here we have a number of attributes, glossary items and systems and so forth. And so what I was after was probably the customer master system. So let's drill in on that. And when I look at the customer master, it says, hey, you've opened up this asset. It's called CMD. It's a system. It gives me a definition on what the system is all about. Gives me the long name, a type, and so forth. Tells me what glossary assets are associated to this system, And it gives me everything that I need to know, and you can attach documents as well. And it gives me everything I need to know from a summary point of view, everything about the system itself. It also tells me, hey, it's a current active system, it's in production, and it's accessible to all viewers because it's public. Okay. I can also see some dashboards here, quality metrics, and they're the quality metrics that have been derived from the contents of the CMD system. So we've got completeness, accuracy, consistency, validity, and timeliness. But what I'm really interested in is the data privacy side of things. And so the privacy metrics come from what Kingsley will show you shortly, which is around the security side of things, and that all comes from secure at source. So it gives me some risk scoring around the CMD application. It tells me what's the dollar value of that exposure. The protection status is telling me 94% of that database or that system is unprotected. That's a bit of a concern if I was in charge of the customer master. And it tells me, hey, the sensitivity levels is, there's six restricted data schemas and one that's not been analysed. So that's it from a data privacy point of view. A couple of other things I probably want to just highlight here is everything about the system that I need to know is 2 clicks away. So if there are any interfaces, I could see the lineage within how it's flowing through the enterprise. There's the customer master. Are there any policies that I want to highlight that I should be concerned about, that I may want to track? Here are the policies on CMD. I can see personal information rating. I may want to look into that. We can look into that, highlight that, open that up on another screen. And there I am on the personal information rating. Just going back to the system, I can view the stakeholders who plays an active role who plays an active and direct role within the system. So we can see John Admin here. He's a system business owner. We can also see stakeholder community, and these are what I like to call the second cousin object. So, for example, data sets. They don't have a direct relationship, but they have an indirect relationship. The glossary items, the processes, the projects, the policies, okay, and the legal entities. So we have all of that. We've got the direct impact and all the items here. From a data point of view, we can view the data map. We can see the data sets that are related, the attributes that form those data sets. We have all of that. That's all being curated, and we can see the application IAG2, and there's a couple of tables there, and there's a customer master and a flag system. So all of that, and I can drill in on that as well and view the attributes. And all of these attributes have been curated from the auto scanning from the resources from the catalogue, and they have been moved into the system over here called CMD. We have a full history here, and we can create change requests as well. Probably what I want to do is show you and hand over to Kingsley to show you, how these privacy metrics came about.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for the brief and giving a foundation on Informatica's offering on data security and data privacy. So what I would try to walk through everybody over here is a brief on how secure at source works, and how does it pretty much help any organization have a view of the data privacy on where does one stand. So I've just logged into the screen over here, but if you notice, the first thing what kind of catches your eye over here is a wonderful dashboard, which gives you lots of details, in fact, lots of metrics, which would interest anybody from a data security and a data privacy perspective. If you look at the screen over here, there are many metrics. Firstly, the one which catches your eye is a risk score. So risk score is something which is calculated by the Informatica's artificial intelligence CLAIRE engine after it does a set of scans which are automated based on different data sources which one could configure for secure at source to read onto. Like you see, you also see a view of how much of data is marked as protected and unprotected. It also does give you a view of how much data is restricted, the view of the top data stores. Data stores is nothing but a set of source systems which have been probably defined. Secure at source also does, because it runs on top of artificial intelligence CLAIRE engine, it does auto domain classifications. So what you see over here is domain classifications which have been done by secure at source. It also tells you the number of fields which are attached to each of the top domains which are being highlighted over here. It also does, it has tagging feature available for each of the data sources which does exist in your enterprise. Beyond that, it also gives you a view of the number of users, the user access view. It lets you group data by data store groups, where one would want to tag a certain source to a certain group. A group could also be not just something like a department like banking or corporate or HR. It could also be tied to a policy, which could be a GDPR or a PCI or a PHI or a PII, which we also see on the dashboard over here on the left side. It also does list the top departments and a cost associated with each of the risk scores which have been highlighted over here. So if you probably look at the screen over here on top as well, it does give you a picture telling you how much of data in the organization is at risk. Another good or rather beautiful thing about this dashboard is it's completely customizable. I can move it as and where I want depending on the view I would like to have. I can resize it if you really want to. Do not like the black color, you can even customize that. There's a lot of customization which can be done at security levels. The risk scores one would want to be highlighted and have a heat map on. So all of that can be customized based on one's need. All right. So getting back to how do we really get all of this data? So the way secure at source works is fairly simple. So let's assume that I have a new data store to be ingested. So all I can do is I can go to data store and I could go ahead and ingest a new data store. But before I get there, I just wanted to give a glance of the different data stores which are present over here, which are already being configured. So if you see attached to each of the data stores over here is a protection status. It tells you a risk score associated with each of it. It also tells you the number of scans which have been done. In data stores itself, I just also wanted to cover and tell you the vast coverage in terms of systems, what we can connect to. If I would want to add a new data store, if you look at the details over here, I could give a name as what I want, a description as and what you like. And if you look at the category, the list is quite advanced. It has applications, big data, cloud, data integration, there's data management, file management, and so on and so forth. And within data management as well, the connectivity suite is fairly vast. Apart from the built-in native connectors, we also support JDBC, through which one can have other database systems one can connect to. And that's how we would ingest, I wouldn't say ingest, but define a data store. And once we have defined a data store, the next process over here in secure at source is to create a scan job, right? So like said, or like the word says, a scan job would scan through the metadata and do a discovery process of what the data set actually is, while I would want to do the discovery of what the data is. This is the one what I've already created. I just wanted to highlight over here. It throws you details around how many sensitive fields are present or files. In this case, I just had a single data store, but it also throws a risk score based on the scan which has been done. Another point what I wanted to highlight is it does run a profile not just on the metadata, but on the data as well, right? So I have an option of doing a scan on the data and on the metadata. And like said in the few pointers some time before, the Clear engine intelligently identifies whether a column can be marked as or should be marked as sensitive or not. So just to give you an example, it might scan through email ID and it would look for a format of, I wouldn't say it would look for it, but it would find that a certain data element is called email, and it would probably mark it as sensitive. Even if the metadata definition would not, or rather did not exist, it could always look at the data within the column set itself and identify that it looks like an email and mark that as a sensitive item. All right, and all of this is an automated process. So once I have probably done the discovery and identified that certain elements are to be marked as sensitive or not. So what would be the next process is to take a certain action, right? So I would want to protect the data. So the way we do it in the Informatica's data security offering is Secure at Source lets us integrate these rules into a product which what we call as a dynamic data masking, which I have shown over here. All right, so through dynamic data masking, what we have done is the rules which were, or rather the privacy rules which have been auto-generated in Secure at Source get integrated into dynamic data masking. All right. In this particular use case over here, what we wanted to really show you is personation of different users looking at the same set of data, right? So just as you see in the deck over here, we have different roles within the organization. So just as Tom had also mentioned, we have John Admin, who is the data governance officer, and we have Mary Smith, who is an internal product consumer, who's a developer onshore, and we have an offshore developer. So based on these different roles, we see different views of the same data set depending on different policies which were talked about by Tom some time back. All right, so coming back over here. So because I have different roles being defined with different PIR ratings, which were personal information ratings, I have different groups created over here. So I have a group created for John admin. I have a group created for a certain role, which was Mary Smith, for an offshore user, Martin Hurst, and also the RU user, right? So, and these are completely configurable. These can be switched on and off and played around quite easily. So in terms of how the data really looks, right? So for a person who really is accessing the data directly, right? So the data has been pretty much viewed in this way, where we have the first name, last name, the emails, and so, and the address information, which is accessible. And with our PIR ratings, what we had said was we want John admin to pretty much view the first name, the last name, the date of birth, and the data which is just internal, and the address information. So if you see over here, I'm looking at the same set of data. So that's another part I wanted to highlight over here. So if you probably look at my connection properties, I'm looking at the same data set, but with a different set of user connections. So similarly, if I switch into a role which is of Mary Smith and try to run this, what I see is Mary just sees the first name. She does see a masked value of the date of birth, which is limited only to the month and the year. She does not see the actual date. Even within the address information, she just sees the suburb, the PIN code, and the policy number, and the rest of the information is not really visible, right? So similarly, coming to the restricted user who is having access just to the RACV system, this is also completely controlled based on the user credentials. So this user also actually has the same visibility as Mary, but it's restricted only to the RACV system, right? So similarly, looking at the role of Martin Hurst, if I would probably try to have a view of his data, what Martin gets to see is not even the details of the first name and the last name. He just gets to see the initials. Even coming to the date of birth, this is a masking policy or the rule which has been applied, where Martin gets to see only the age of the person, which is a calculated masked value and is not exposed to the date of birth. Also talking about the other details, he just gets to see the state and no other information. And finally, going to the offshore user, he does not really see this or other details between internal or external user, but he just has access to the state information, the country, and a street address. And these details can be configured, and it's just limited to one's specific need or use. All right. So switching back, so this is how pretty much we have privacy being controlled from secure at source, where rules are auto-generated and integrated with dynamic data masking. So another aspect of secure at source which I really wanted to touch base on was, once you have probably set these rules in place, it probably does not stop over there. One would continually want to have a view of what's going on in the organization, would want to measure, and would also want to control it. right? So based on all of these factors, we can have a data store summary where you can see what all policies under which each of the data stores are being protected under. So before I probably jump there, you also see over here, we have security policies, we have security groups. A security policy would let you define if certain data stores are critical. If you mark those as critical, we can have auto configurations, auto notifications in case we do identify any unwanted or unexpected excess. That all can be monitored. Beyond a data store summary, like I said, there is also a department summary one can get. There's also a user activity summary, which one can look at. The user activity summary would tell you activities of all users by different details. Again, one can classify even it by domain over here. You can have a look at it city-wise, based on a person. You could also see which user has been trying to access the most of the data, which might be data at risk or might be an expensive action to the organization. Right? Another beautiful feature of Secure at Source is the anomaly detection. Right. So I call this one of the most important features because one can view all access-related details, can detect anomalies, take actions, control, and really monitor and have actions and also notifications being given on unwanted activities. So if I see over here, I have Alric Affleck, who is showing a very high anomaly score. Here we see that he's been accessing 20 data stores with a very high severity. I could look into the details of what Elric's actions have been. We see violations across certain security policies, right? What all are the data stores he's been accessing, what time he has been accessing it, and what all data stores he's been accessing it, and so on and so forth, right? So once you have a process in place, a policy being defined on how you would want to have the privacy rules defined in the organization, we look at the data being securely protected and in safe hands for you as a data governance officer to continually not just view but also monitor and take required actions from a data privacy perspective. And like Tom had shown some time back, this stitches back to Informatica Axon as well, where we did look at the PIR related view, where it talks about, it keeps giving you a view of what all are the privacy ratings as defined by Informatica, and one can continually monitor and measure and keep taking required actions.
Thank you, Kingsley. That was really good. So just quickly on the anomaly side of things, one of the things that Kingsley mentioned was the anomalies, and the anomalies is all about understanding the behavior of the user, understanding where the sensitive data exists, and so when that user behavior crosses the boundary to unusual behavior, and so what we do is we machine learn user behavior, and when that behavior crosses the line and it now becomes, instead of usual behavior, it becomes unusual behavior, we call that an anomaly. And we highlight that as an anomaly there as well. I just wanted to make sure that that came across and was clear. Really quickly, so just wanted to summate now what did we see and bring it back to and then close off the presentation. So what we saw was we began with myself showing you the data governance side of things and showing you the privacy metrics around a particular data store. We saw that it was integrated with the catalogue, and we curated a whole bunch of system metadata from the catalogue and manifested that within Axon. Then we handed over to Kingsley to actually show where the security risk existed, and then overlaid that with the user access as well. And those metrics were then manifested into a data privacy scorecard, which was integrated into Axon. We took the security portion a bit further and showed you, well, when we find those vulnerabilities, how can we secure the data? And so we showed you a whole bunch of different personas, and those personas had security policies applied to them. And Kingsley showed you through a SQL query all the different personas and how the different masking occurred. So I hope that came across clearly. I hope you enjoyed this presentation. And if there are any further questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Thank you very much, and till next time.